about to leave, already packing. Come with me, I'm not really asking. We'll get away to a place where we don't know. About to see the world in action, what we can be, life with no distractions. We'll get away, this is what we waited for. Take my hand, we'll make it somehow. We can't miss out. I'm done living life with the lights out. Die with my own doubts. Be free with me. Be free. Be free with me. Be free.
Welcome to our Bahamas wrap-up.
We've been sailing the Bahamas 6 months.
Big 6. This was our very, very first experience with sailing, and we spent it all in the Bahamas. In this video, we're going to be talking about the different areas that we went to. Abacos, Eleuthera, and the Exumas. And in each of those areas, we're going to talk about the sailing conditions, the anchoraging, the safety, and our favorite spots.
And then we'll get into the budget, which everybody wants to know how much money we spent.
Yeah. And this again was 6 months. So we spent the time here from November to May. We just keep telling everybody, if you are going to start sailing, Bahamas for us was the best place that you can learn and have protection and have safety and have help from other friends and other cruiser community.
While enjoying beautiful landscapes, beautiful blue waters, awesome snorkeling. It's definitely a good spot to be.
Now, this is our personal experience with the Bahamas. Our own opinions, our own experience. If you guys choose to do the Bahamas, your experience is going to be different than ours.
Our boat is a 1971 35-foot Pearson. It's got a centerboard, so when it's up, it drafts 3 feet 9 inches. We say roughly 4 feet. And when it's down, it drafts 7.5 feet.
I'm going to have to say, most of the time we were in the Bahamas, it was raised. We also have an electric setup, so we spend no money on diesel. And
we also have a huge, way oversized Mantis anchor.
Yes.
It's 55 pounds, and we've never drug with it.
This video is not sponsored by anybody, so anything that you hear us speaking about, equipment or programs, is strictly our honest opinion on how we are using them and how you could use them.
With that said, we want to thank our patrons. You guys have made this process so much more. All the support you guys give us is just amazing, and we truly thank you guys.
And so grateful, 100%.
As well as you, the viewer, we're really appreciative that you guys watch us, follow us, like us, comment. It makes this whole experience way better.
We are doing this because this is our passion and we love doing it, and we would do anything and everything to keep doing it. But with you guys and your support, it just makes it even better.
So, if you guys haven't liked this video, like it, leave a comment.
And be sure to subscribe, because we actually have some big announcements coming up and you're gonna want to subscribe for sure.
First off, the Abacos. We landed in West End, and that's actually where we checked in. The check-in process was very easy. Just go in there, fill out some paperwork.
Drop them a $300 bill.
Yeah. At the time when we checked in, our boat's 35 feet. Anything 35 feet and above, I believe, is $300. Anything less is $150. But that could change. So
also, on top of that, we needed to provide a pet permit for Oona, our pup. Now, I did the research on that. It was going to take from the United States, when we first got the paperwork for her, to send out to the Bahamas to get the permit. it was going to take weeks upon weeks to actually get it into the right hands, get it processed, and get it back to us. And we were on a time crunch at that point, I think. So I found this gentleman, Wellington, who runs the BahamasPetPermit.com service. All you do is you send over your money, you send over your application. He actually takes that to the location, gets your paperwork for you, and gets it back to you. So no worry about if it gets getting lost in the mail, no extra expenses of faxing it over. It was just super hassle-free, so I highly recommend if you have a dog or an animal that you're going to be bringing over into the Bahamas, check out BahamasPetPermit.com.
Once we were checked in, we then went to Green Turtle. That's really where our exploring started. The time frame that we were in the Abacos was from November to...
Probably January. The end of January.
January, so winter months. The water was a little bit cooler.
Little chilly. Really glad we got a wetsuit.
And the weather, the wind was changing all the time. So we found ourselves moving from one anchorage to the other.
Now imagine this. We're brand new to this, so every other day I feel like we're picking up anchor and sailing to a new spot, which was an amazing learning experience for us, for sure. So again, like we said, great place to learn.
In general, the Abacos were a little shallow in spots, so you want to make sure you got charts that are up to date. We use Navionics.
And we were so cautious because we were brand new to this. We were following everything to a T. If there was a line to follow, we followed it. We have heard that Explorer Charts is really good, but Navionics actually did really well for us, and we used it the entire time.
A lot of the anchorages are pretty close together, so at max, you're probably spending a half a day to sail from one anchorage to the other, depending on where you really want to go. The anchoraging overall in the Abacos, I would say, was fairly good. A lot of sandy bottoms. You do have to watch out for rocky bottoms. Like, there'll be a little bit of sand and then just rock. That's probably the worst case scenario that you're going to find there, or actually anywhere in the Bahamas. We ran into that once.
That was the only time we dragged, and that was when we were trying to set anchor and we knew we were dragging. It wasn't in the middle of the night dragging.
Yeah, we just kept going until we hit a sand patch.
Yeah.
And then we caught and we were good the rest of the night.
Yeah. We found that the Abacos was more of a resort-y feeling sort of place. We did find a couple islands that we were able to find seclusion and hang out by ourselves, but most of the bigger islands like Marsh Harbor and Green Turtle and Hopetown had that little resort feeling. So if you're looking for that, I would definitely highly recommend the Abacos for that. There's a lot of airports to get into and just easier to get transportation around.
With that, we felt safe. There were a few spots where we did lock up our dinghy, like Marsh Harbor. We've heard of people getting their dinghies stolen there, so we were just,
that was hearsay that we had heard.
Yeah, it was just all hearsay. Yeah. So we just were proactive about locking up our dinghy.
But having said that, we didn't really lock up anything, even the dinghy, on most spots. So the resorty areas, we were pretty much just hooking her up and walking away. But
go with your gut.
Yeah.
If you go to a place and you feel a little sketched out about it or whatever, and you don't feel comfortable with not locking up your dinghy, lock it up.
We also, when we went, we had the Beast, if you remember the Beast, and a 2.3 engine. We kind of made a joke that we would just kind of motor up next to somebody else who had a bigger, larger engine /
nicer dinghy, yeah.
And we always say, well, if somebody's going to get taken, it would probably be theirs. But again, we really didn't feel unsafe walking around with Oona. We were fine with Oona as well. A lot of the people, there was nobody who ever gave us any issues with having Oona out. And I felt safe. I was able to walk around a lot of the towns all by myself, and I did not have an issue at all.
Our favorite spot was... What was
Manjack.
Yeah, for sure. Manjack.
We had a really cool time there. We actually spent it with our friends from Sailing Uma, Dan and Kika. And they were actually a really big inspiration for us to actually be moving a lot. So we kind of spent a lot of time with them in the beginning, which was really awesome. There we did some snorkeling, and we had lots of lobster, and we saw sharks for the first time. It was just a really neat place, and it was so quiet. We were the only two boats in this little bay, and just had a really awesome time there.
It is hot.
We're literally sweating our lives away right now.
We're dying here.
There's no wind.
Yeah, in this anchorage it is dead calm. We just had a rainstorm, so it like sucked all the wind away.
And it's super extra moist. All right, moving on. Next stop we went to was Eleuthera. This was our first, outside of crossing the Gulf, our biggest sail. And it was a 30-hour passage because the wind died on us. Because the wind changed, we ended up changing our anchoraging and went to somewhere a little bit further away.
Yeah, we hit strong winds in the Great Bahama Bank. So that's like that little Caribbean side of the Eleuthera. Sailing around Eleuthera was fairly easy because you have that big bank. The anchorages are pretty far apart from one another, but because you have that bank, it's fairly deep. There isn't a lot of coral heads to worry about, and you don't have to worry about shallow areas, except when you get to the anchorages.
So in Eleuthera, we found that the anchorages for us was great holding. We did hear a couple people dragging in Hatchet Bay, which is supposed to be the most protected anchorage in Eleuthera, but we were fine. We also anchored in Rock Sound, and that was fine. Outside of that, we didn't really do a lot of anchoraging.
In Rock Sound, you got to be careful getting in and out. There are a lot of shallow areas in there, so just time your tides right.
Yeah. So with only going to the 2 anchorages, the reason we did that was because, again, it's one big solid piece of landmass. So we were able to do a lot of hitchhiking. So I'm going to say that the safety in Eleuthera was right on point. We felt safe. The only thing that we had an issue with was in Hatchet Bay, there's a lot of dogs, and they were not as friendly to Oona as we would have liked.
Yeah, they seem like they're strays, but somebody feeds them.
Yeah.
So they're just roaming the streets.
But it's not like that in every place, because in Rock Sound, there were puppies there that were just so sweet and loved on Oona, and she wanted nothing to do with them. But that was like the only safety concern that we had. Walking around, again, fine. Probably wouldn't do it at night, but hitchhiking we had a great time with, and we kept doing it, so we didn't move. We were able to explore a lot of the island that way.
And our favorite spot in Eleuthera was the Queen's Baths.
Yeah, that was really fun. We actually had it mostly to ourselves the whole entire day. And it was just really cool. It was the first time we ever seen pools like that.
Yeah.
Crystal blue water. You could see the rocks and the fish.
Yeah, just the carvings is just really cool.
And then the ocean, Atlantic Ocean on the other side, just bringing the water in. It was just something completely different than we had seen.
Very majestic.
Yeah.
Last but not least, we went to the Exumas, which was by far our favorite spot.
We didn't think the water could get any bluer. It just kept getting bluer and bluer. But with that, the waters got shallower and shallower.
Yeah, it was probably the most difficult sailing that we had encountered thus far. Right from the get-go, the cuts were a big concern of ours. We did as best as we could to time them at the right spot to get through them.
You had to be really conscious of getting in and out and being in the right weather window, being in the right tide window.
The worst time to go through them is when your tide is going out and your wind is coming through, and it just creates these standing waves, and it's something you just don't want to be in.
I think our best sail that we had was from Eleuthera to Exumas.
Yeah,
we flew over, and that was our first experience with the cut, because we had to actually kind of hang out and
time it right.
We did some fishing and hung out before we went through the cut to time it right.
And we practiced some maneuvers.
We did heave two there.
Yeah.
So we were practicing, but that was a really fun, fast sail over for sure.
Yeah.
With the Exumas, there was a lot of concern for, especially me, looking at the Navionics map and seeing all those little red dots that mean coral heads. So I kept sending Beau forward, look for the coral heads, make sure we don't hit the coral heads. Because really, the one big thing you always hear about, don't hit the coral. Oh my God. The anchorage we found in the Exumas was all mostly sandy bottom, so we didn't really have any issues setting the anchor ever, did we? No.
I don't think so.
Also, it being so shallow, we didn't have to put a lot of anchor chain out, so Beau didn't have to work as hard on pulling the anchor chains up.
Yeah, I didn't have to get my back workout, you know.
Less exercise in the Exumas that happened. But if you are cruising around in the Exumas and you have a larger draft, this is one that you're definitely going to want to pay attention to the charts. And even for us, having a 3-9 draft, we did touch bottom a couple times. Now,
and I was being lazy one time, and we ran aground.
Yeah, we did run aground in lee stocking.
We almost got through.
But we were a little bit more, little less cautious than we were in the Abacos. It was all sand, so we knew it wasn't going to be an issue if we did touch, just a little touch. And most of the places we were able to
Most places we were able to lean off of it.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Lean off. So you were able to get to each island within a day.
Unlike the Abacos, where we pretty much had full protection from the wind, if it was blowing anything other than the east in the Exumas, we had to go find coverage, which made it a little tricky on planning our passages and planning our anchorages.
We were always way ahead of schedule. We were always looking at the wind to make sure that we had good protection.
And when it wasn't blowing from the east, when we would go to these protected anchorages, they were always busy.
Super busy. So a couple of times we actually just set the anchor and rode it out, especially in Black Point.
Black Point was the worst.
3 days of just this.
Yeah, and it was blowing like 20 knots from the west, and we were completely exposed.
Yeah.
It was
interesting watching other people in the anchorage just bouncing around.
But that Manus, we didn't budge.
Highly recommend getting an insurance plan called the Mantis, £55 for sure.
Yeah, definitely oversize your anchor. It is a little bit of a pain to pull up, but definitely worth it.
So we did find in the Exumas that it was a balance between being pretty desolate or being very touristic. Now, we did find a lot of private islands there. We did find a lot of islands that were just super filled with tourists and games and things happening, water sports and all sorts of excitement happening. So we did have to kind of find those little anchorages that we were all by ourselves and we could get oona to shore. That was the only kind of issue within the Exumas for us, was trying to get oona to a shore that wasn't private. And we wanted to respect people's property, but you can actually go to the high tide water line.
Mm-hmm. High tide.
And that's all public access, but we wanted to give people their space, especially Mr. Johnny Depp. What did the sign say?
The sign said, "This is not Disney. You're not welcome."
So we obviously weren't going to be walking her on
his beach.
But safety-wise?
Safety, we felt really safe in the Exumas.
There were places where you were by yourself and you felt safe, and then there were places that were crowded and you felt safe. Especially Georgetown, which is a huge cruiser community. You could go and just leave your stuff wherever and nobody ever really touched it.
And the cruiser community there is so big. Everybody is super friendly, super helpful. There's a cruiser's net that's on channel 68 that happens, I think, at 8 o'clock every morning. So you get all your cruiser news that you need.
It was like adult camp, for real. And each of these places that we went to really are dependent upon seasons. So for us, going to the Abacos in the winter, it wasn't as busy. But the further we went south and the closer to summer we got, the more busy it got. So if you're looking to go a little bit less crowded, you're going to want to go into the winter months. But again, cold water.
Yeah. But of course, our favorite spot in the Exumas were the Rocky Dundas.
Yes. We actually made a video that titled Our Favorite Spot, if you want to check it out, because it was really so awesome. We had a private anchorage. We were there by ourselves. We were able to jump right off the boat and go into a coral garden. Mm-hmm. The cave in the Rocky Dundas is really neat.
Rachel's bubble bath was not too far away. I think we were able to find another spot where we could go spearfishing as well.
It's right on the edge of the park, the national park, so we were able to go out and be able to go fishing. It was just a really neat area,
But let's get on to probably why you're watching this video, the budget.
So the first expense was water. We have a 40-gallon water tank, so we were really concerned when we came over if we were going to actually be able to find water and also if it was going to be drinkable.
And we were able to find water pretty much everywhere, especially if you can find a marina. Most bigger towns had free water, and it was all drinkable.
And also, we tried to catch water when it rained, but it doesn't rain a lot in the Bahamas. So, all in all,
we didn't really get any.
All in all, we spent $27 on water. Next up was trash. Most of the places that we had you were able to just be able to drop off your trash wherever. There was a garbage can or a dumpster. The only place that we actually paid for trash really was in Georgetown, Exumas. And that we spent $14 to get rid of trash.
Next was gas. Since we don't have a diesel motor, we spent $0 on diesel, but we do have a dinghy motor and it takes gas. So we spent a total of $108. Again, you can get gas pretty much everywhere, like especially the marinas.
Our next expense was laundry. Since we only have a 40-gallon water tank, we don't really want to put all of that water usage into doing laundry. And it does take a lot of time. I tried. It takes time. It doesn't get as clean. So it was easier just to use a coin laundry. Most of them we found at the marinas. They're between $3 and $4-ish. Sometimes we brought the wet clothes back to hang up to dry to save some money. But we spent $89 total to do laundry. And I think that was pretty good.
Yeah, it's not bad for 6 months.
Yeah.
Our next expense was Wi-Fi. It was one of our bigger expenses because we upload videos and we have to have internet. We did go with BTC service, and we got that from the very beginning when we first got to West End. Had we known about something called My Island Wi-Fi, we would have went with that. My Island Wi-Fi was a lot cheaper. It's at the time $75 a month for completely unlimited Wi-Fi, whereas we were paying, was it $35 for 15 gigs?
Yeah. So we found ourselves sometimes needing 15 gigs every week or so because of our amount of uploads or downloads that we were doing for music or anything like that.
Yeah, we would have saved some money if we went with the My Island Wi-Fi.
So we do recommend getting a cell booster. A lot of the places that we went to, especially in the Exumas, the cell service was a little spotty. So if you had a booster, it does help. We had a Wi-Fi booster, and we'd have to say that we didn't use it a whole bunch because you couldn't find a lot of Wi-Fi.
Our next expense were boat expenses, and grand total of $581. These were things like 5200, hardware, just paint, yeah, little things for the boat. Yeah. But it also includes a brand new to us inflatable dinghy. That was $200.
And then we also had a sail repair of our mainsail in Rock Sound, which was $120. So that kind of ate up most of our boat expenses. And next up will be gear. We actually didn't have a lot of gear when we started out. We just kind of hopped in the boat and crossed the Gulf Stream. We got some fins and fishing gear and a fishing rod, and we spent $358 on that stuff.
And then we had other miscellaneous expenses, like personal. We spent $115. Transportation. When we were West End, we had to go get the BTC card, so we spent $15 there. Credit card fees totaled up to $35.
Cash is king, guys. In the Bahamas. Bring cash.
And entrance fees, $45.
So our biggest expense was food. Because we love to eat, and you can't really live without eating. So we did do some dining out. We were trying to eat mostly on board.
We love to cook for ourselves. So that's why we really didn't eat out a lot.
Yeah. So most of the dining expenses was like coffee shops, and we did a couple of fish fries and regattas and just hanging out with friends that we've met along the way. And we spent $332 on dining out.
Our biggest expense were groceries.
Now, we did do 3 months of provisioning before we got on board. Probably didn't actually last us 3 months, but we only thought we were going to be in the Bahamas for 3 months. So that's what the provisioning was.
Yeah, we were here a lot longer. Had we known, we probably would have got more of the staples that we typically eat, which would be a lot more oils.
And vegetables. You can find vegetables here and all the islands, but the selection isn't like you would be finding in the States. Also, canned vegetables pretty much consist of corn and green beans and peas. And
that's it.
And that's it. We did find a grocery store in the Abacos called Abaco Groceries. It's like a mini Costco's, and that had a lot of the stuff that we actually use. And then the next stop would be Maxwell's and the Abacos. Those were the 2 big grocery stores that we wish we would have stocked up on even more. Once you get to Eleuthera, it kind of weeds out a little bit on grocery shopping, and then you don't really find another really big grocery store until Georgetown and the Exumas, which was still pricier, but you still had a bigger selection. That was what we found the most, was not as much of a selection.
Yeah.
We were looking for farmers markets. We didn't really find a whole bunch.
We found a few here and there, but from what we understand, it's very hard to grow vegetables on the islands, so that's why you don't see a lot of people having farmers markets, because they just can't grow the greens.
Yeah. We found ourselves eating a lot of cabbage.
Yeah, I can make cabbage 20 different ways.
Yes. We did find that most of the items were about 2 times more expensive than you were going to find in the United States. But outside of that, you're not going to starve. You're going to find food everywhere you go. There's going to be better stocked grocery stores in some areas and some areas not.
So groceries cost us $2,280.
Which for 6 months, not too bad.
Yeah.
Now granted, we did provision some of that, but I still think we did a pretty good job.
Overall, the whole total, we spent $4,905.
Now, for 6 months, that would be $817.50 per month.
That's really good.
That's less than what our rent was before we got a boat.
Yeah. Overall, the Bahamas were just what we needed. It was a perfect learning ground for us.
Especially for a bunch of newbies like us. Right, Buna? She loved it. It was just an amazing time all around. And we cannot wait until the next season 3 coming up. If you guys have not subscribed yet, be sure to hit that button because the Caribbean is coming for you. We're so excited.
Yeah.
And there are some special announcements coming up.
So stay tuned. Thanks for watching, guys.
Bye.
Without my love for the ocean, I would be lost.